What's up, guys? Back again. We have another episode of Consumed, and on this one, we're going to be talking about Amazon having issues in the European Union. Recently, the European Union has opened up a preliminary investigation against Amazon on some kind of antitrust issues. EU's kind of biggest issue with Amazon is they consider them kind of launching low-cost products and driving prices down as being like kind of anti-competitive to the rest of online retailers. And if that sounds kind of weird to us Americans, that's because the main difference between like American antitrust law and EU antitrust law is that the EU kind of also looks at the competitive landscape and how a market leader is kind of abusing their power to hurt kind of that competitive landscape. That's much different than the US, and where we kind of only look at is this hurting the consumer? And low prices obviously do not hurt the consumer. That's a great thing. So we generally don't even let anything of this kind of nature get off the ground in our kind of antitrust law. And the EU's kind of having issues with, one, that Amazon being a market leader in both like a seller environment and then also as like a platform environment, it provides them with kind of an immense amount of power to be able to kind of wield in the competitive landscape. And it's good to note that the EU is kind of considering Amazon as like an online retailer, and they're not really considering like the market size of just overall retail. They are considering online retail and just kind of retail in general to be two completely different buckets, which to me just seems a little bit crazy, just where commerce is going in general. You guys obviously know there's just a huge amount of shift towards internet sales. So to me, it just kind of seems kind of odd to only kind of consider them competing against other online sellers. As I kind of touched before, having kind of the duality of being both the market leader as a seller online and then also as kind of a platform for other sellers to sell online, it seems to be creating a lot of issues with EU's antitrust officials, and they kind of want to get in and ask some questions. And that's primarily because Amazon globally actually sells about 50% of their products through third party, and then the other 50% gets sold as kind of a wholesale kind of environment. Being that Amazon has both kind of customer data from them selling products themselves, and then also customer data from their millions of sellers that are on their platform, the question that needs to be asked is, how should Amazon be able to use that data? Now, I think most sellers going into a relationship with Amazon does understand that there's kind of a major trade-off. What you're kind of giving up is some of your customer data. If you become extremely popular on Amazon, you do kind of run the risk of Amazon potentially taking that customer data or taking that kind of purchasing data and using it against you. And in return, you get Amazon's massive amount of customers and massive amount of just kind of traffic that's going to their website. So this is a trade-off that every single seller or every single brand is super familiar with. This is not something new. This is something that everybody kind of understands. And time again, sellers and brands have been choosing to sell on the platform because of just kind of the immense value they're getting with kind of all those customers and all that momentum and all of that potential kind of buying power that is kind of there on a day-to-day basis. What the EU is kind of arguing, and what some people have come out recently and kind of talked about, even though, like I said before, this is not anything new. This is something that people should have understood. They're basically saying, hey, Amazon is taking all of this popular customer data, all this popular purchasing data, and then now creating private labels to compete against me as a brand or me as a seller. To me, as kind of a CPG consultant, a strategy consultant, this is all too familiar. This is not anything new. If you've ever kind of worked in any kind of aspects of retail, you understand that all kind of retailers use customer data, purchasing data of these brands, these branded products, to create private label products. This is not anything new. This is kind of just a continuation of what's going on, maybe a digitization of that process. It maybe can work a little bit quicker now in the new kind of business environment, just with speed of collecting data and just kind of being able to use that data to create meaningful insights. I understand the speed of life is getting a little bit quicker, so unfortunately you don't have that long extended competitive advantage, especially when you're growing a new innovative product. But this is kind of the trade-off that you make. If you were able to kind of get all of this attention to your brand without an Amazon, you would have probably done it yourself. But you need Amazon to create those customers for you, and for that trade-off, and you understand that there's a flip side to that, especially if you're not diversified. You understand that potentially Amazon could go and copycat your products and potentially wipe out your whole market if you have not kind of diversified your channels, if you've not moved to kind of direct to consumer, or you're not moved to even some retail specialty or mass retailing. That's just kind of the risk that you run. But the EU is kind of saying that this is kind of wrong. The Amazon cannot be a market leader as a seller. And again, they're calling their market as kind of online sales only, not as retailing as a huge bucket. They're saying you can't act as a seller and then also act as kind of the platform leader, where you're getting data from the other 50% of the transactions and using that against those kind of smaller competitors to kind of wipe them out with private label product. And I understand that this sounds kind of cutthroat, and it seems kind of wrong or unethical or morally wrong or whatever you kind of want to say, but I think most people that are in business, and I mean really in business, understand that this is just part of the game. There's always going to be chess pieces that get moved around, and it's your job to understand how to move against those chess pieces. The EU is a little bit different than the US, where they believe that they should help out the little guy a little bit more. They should help the chessboard be a little bit more playable for amateurs. To me, I just don't really, quite honestly, believe in that. I believe in just kind of ultra competitive environments where the cream kind of rises to the top. This is just par for the course in my world, at least. Something that I've mentioned quite a few times with my clients, and it comes down to like, he who owns the data wins in kind of this new business environment. Though the last, forever decades have been really built on the back of wholesaling relationships, distribution, working with mass retailers, and them having a lot of control over your data. You're now in a different position in 2018 to be able to get a lot of that data yourself. Is that through social media or social ads? Is that through your website? Is that through a variety of other kind of data collection methods? There's just a ton of different things that you could do at this point in 2018 to ensure that you can understand who your customer is, and then make sure you are kind of marketing or targeting yourself to those consumers. So we'll end up seeing how this kind of plays out. Like I said at the beginning of this video, this is still preliminary. The EU is definitely a little bit ahead of kind of getting in front of these mega companies, these mega internet or tech companies. And I know that my opinions maybe are on kind of one extreme. I urge you, if you are kind of trying to collect some information on this topic, to kind of read some of the other side of the spectrum. I do believe there's some validity to asking questions early, especially to some of these mega companies, just to kind of understand what their intentions are, what their aspirations are. And I think from our perspective in the US, some of our antitrust laws could be looked at a little bit more broadly from kind of an acquisitions or mergers and acquisitions kind of perspective, make sure that we are understand why companies are consolidating with each other, and is that potentially good or bad for our consumer. I like the idea of continuously looking at the consumer perspective on antitrust and not looking at the competitive landscape. I think that's kind of a main hard line that the US kind of has to continue to look at. I'll make sure I link below a kind of a different perspective on this whole topic just so you guys can read something different. But if you guys have listened to me this long on this kind of dry topic, definitely hit the thumbs up button. If you guys have not subscribed to this YouTube channel, make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button. That just ensures you guys are getting all of the video content that I put out on this channel. As always, I don't charge for this content, so all I ask in return is that you tell a friend or tell a colleague if you're getting some value, so we can kind of grow this community a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. But I want to thank you guys for taking a little bit of time out of your day to listen to me on this topic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.